Now, we were talking about the factor of luck in this race, and it's very real. And let me give you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about. By the way, Bernie Sanders' speech is over. The southern states largely went first, giving Hillary Clinton a big lead, giving her more momentum, giving her better press coverage. And so she just got lucky in that sense. So Bernie Sanders gets a little unlucky and the luck of the draw there. Then there's the minor things like she wins 6 out of 6 coin tosses in Iowa and winds up winning by 0.2%.
Didn't happen.
Okay. Then I heard it was 6 out of 8.
It didn't happen. Didn't happen like that.
What do you mean?
I saw an NPR piece on it. It's not. It's just, that's all. Just that's a large, giant
brag
myth. She didn't lose. She didn't win Iowa because of anything to do with coin tosses. And it's so freaking complicated how that was determined anyway. It's not true.
Okay, I'll have to take your word for it. Obviously, the early reporting said 6 out of 6. Second round of reporting said 6 out of 8, and then I didn't hear a third round of reporting. Okay. But also now in this round of voting, March 8th, March 15th, critical, and it just so happens that in all the states that are voting, there's giant spring breaks at the different college campuses. So he happens to be better among younger voters, and they happen to be on spring break to the tune of 500,000 students are on spring break in Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, Florida, North Carolina, and Wisconsin as they're voting in those states.
You got to give him credit, regardless of what the outcome is. And, you know, even if Hillary wins the Democratic ticket, you have to give him credit for the fact that he had the odds stacked against him, and he managed to get this far regardless of those odds, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he wasn't thought to get this far. I remember when he first, mentioned that he wanted to run, no one on this panel really took him seriously. And it's not because we didn't like his policy or his politics. We just feel like the system is so corrupt that it's nearly impossible for a politician like him to get elected. So the fact that he's gotten this far, I think, says a lot about what a fighter he is.
Yes, and about his base, right? That there's real support. Because it's partly about Bernie Sanders, but it's also, in my opinion, much more about...
Well, it's about the ideas, because he's not even that great at conveying them. I mean, you guys I like him. Again, I'd vote for him. We all like him because of what he says, and therefore we like him. And we like him because, again, the odds are against him. He's an underdog. So many things are stacked up against him. But the fact of the matter is, if this were a incredibly telegenic, smart, authentic 48-year-old Latino, he'd probably be winning.
And I'd want to sleep with him.
Right, exactly. And you'd be working for him. That's right. And his wife would be watching you. That's right.
No, you know what? I know that, so there's...
I don't mean like he'd be like a formed politician, but I just mean...
No, I get what you're saying, but I still disagree. The only way that it would have helped him is, honestly, if he was African-American. So, I mean, that's like we keep telling you we're keeping it real. That's what we try to do, be as honest and direct with you guys. Because look, here's the thing. The fact that we had a guy who was really progressive and a young, attractive politician. His name was Martin O'Malley, and he got brutalized by Bernie Sanders. And part of the reason for that is that Bernie Sanders, because he's older and 40 years of being this grumpy cat in Congress, et cetera, that's what gave him the authenticity that gave him.
I don't think so. Anybody can be authentic. And Martin O'Malley was on the bottom 10% of authenticity in the history of 20th century politicians. I mean, he was terrible. Everything about Martin O'Malley. You said it in the beginning.
No, I agree with that. I just don't believe he's in the bottom 10% because I think almost all the politicians in my lifetime have been like that.
There's so many people that don't sound like that. I mean, Paul Tsongas didn't sound like that.
I would put 80% of them in the same category.
Paul Simon didn't sound like that. Sherrod Brown doesn't sound like Bernie Sanders. Doesn't sound like Martin O'Malley. And Sherrod Brown, I think, would have, again, just to name one random guy, I think if Russ Feingold doesn't. I think if Russ Feingold had been a middle-aged Jewish guy.
From Wisconsin.
And again, and don't leave out the fact that part of the stacking against him was the dismissal early that the guy wasn't a Democrat until he decided to run for president. I mean, deliberately, he's running for the nomination of a party he didn't want to be in. That hurt, and
but that also helped, though, because this momentum and this movement is not about rah-rah fucking Democrats. I got it's the exact opposite.
I got it, but it also put him up against an establishment, which, as much as you say the establishment is irrelevant, is still a significant force.
But
And
it's not like they don't like Feingold.
if he had just called himself an independent, one thing. But what I was getting at anyway is that he called himself a socialist. It was an enormous hurdle to jump over that I think has dragged him down throughout, because there's a whole swath of people who still think, no way, man, that guy's going to socialize everything, and that's it. And they think they don't trust him. I know it because there's some of them are my friends.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, back to the African American point. Go ahead.
Rutherford also, I mean, this maybe is more obvious than if he had one demographic shift of various different types, but if it had just not happened to be Hillary Clinton, other than perhaps Elizabeth Warren, if you input, instead of Hillary Clinton, almost any other of the, not that there's a lot of politicians in the Democratic Party of her tier, but if it had been a Joe Biden or if it had been someone like that, then I think that she gets so much automatic support. Like, there's a lot of people who will automatically hate her and disregard her regardless of what she says and does. But the flip side of that is that she came in with a lot of people who are like, she's going to be the goddamn president. I don't care what she says. I don't care what she does. And that's partly based off of her husband's legacy. It's partly based off of her previous service or what the perceptions of what her previous service were like. But almost any other established politician would not have had that on the Democratic side.
Definitely true. Partly based on her name, and let's be honest, partly based on her gender. So if Joe Biden had come in, he would have lost to Bernie Sanders. You're right. If it was Joe Biden versus Bernie Sanders, I'm almost positive Bernie Sanders would have won. But Hillary Clinton is a tough hill to climb, right? That is, and Barack Obama climbed it, and he won back in 2008. So it's not like it wasn't doable. And I'm almost certain that Elizabeth Warren would have beaten her. Okay,